Hello there everyone and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Flier Z. This is episode 4. I'm Gord and we're here with Mr. Pfister, our instructor, once again.
Hello class, how are you today, sir?
We're doing well, very well indeed. Not as well as these guys are doing, I don't think.
No, we have gathered some new information on their situation here. We discussed in previous episodes that the Kerbal X stock craft had plenty of Delta V to spare for a return trip, a landing and return to the moon. And that was absolutely true, at least when the Kerbal X was originally designed. Kerbal Space Program, however, as viewers of this episode will no doubt be able to tell us, has undergone a lot of modifications since then, including actual changes in where the moon is, I think. Don't quote me on that first detail. Most importantly, now the pod, if we can right-click on the pod.
Yep, you got it. There it is.
We are carrying 30 units of monopropellant and have been since Kerbin. And that's, it's not a lot of mass in the grand scheme of things, but it does add up in terms of Delta V.
Especially for a flight to the moon.
Oh yeah, it's mass that we expended Delta V on to get into orbit out of the atmosphere, to execute our translunar injection, to capture, and then to perform our powered landing, even as aggressive as it was, which recuperated some of that loss. That's on top of what we already realized we were losing to the fact that we didn't account for the mass of the ablative heat shield, which again is not substantial generally, but it adds up.
Yeah.
So between sessions, we have installed a couple extra mods. One is Kerbal Flight Data, which is visible on the bottom. We'll talk about that in a second. Toolbar, we installed ambient light adjustment, which makes it easier for just, you know, recording YouTube videos, and that's for benefit of anyone who really wants to see how well we get ourselves into jams.
No kidding.
Let's pull up Kerbal Engineer Redux.
Yes. Here we go.
This is how we're going to figure out exactly how bad our situation is. Let's go into the vessel information.
Yeah. So these are the stats about the ship that we currently are looking at.
Yep. Now, we're going to be posting a URL to an Imager file in the description below. It has a very easy to use, very easy to use color-coded diagram of Delta V distances, and it's pretty specific here. That surface launch from moon to low lunar orbit of approximately 10 kilometers is approximately 580 to 600 meters per second Delta V, which we most assuredly do not have.
Yeah. We could...
What does the number 383 indicate for our situation right here?
That would indicate the amount of speed, basically the amount of speed change we can apply to this ship if we were to expend every drop of fuel in our tank currently.
That is 99% correct. The only missing 1% is that it would, from that number 383, we would be deducting our gravity losses. So if we were out in interplanetary space, it would result in a velocity change of 383 meters per second. If we did it all on a single straight vector.
Right,
if
but
we
with
did 100 meters forward and 100 meters retro, then we would have effectively brought ourselves down to 183 meters per second.
Right, and with the addition of the moon's gravity fighting against us, we basically subtract that off, and that's quite a significant loss.
It's mitigable with an aggressive launch profile. essentially what we'll be doing is we'll be launching in reverse of our landing. You'll remember that we were basically shepherding our retrograde vector around the Nav Ball with our burn vector. We would be doing the same thing in reverse, except instead of pushing our retrograde vector towards the top, we would be pulling our prograde vector towards the horizon.
Okay.
The gravity turn in a zero atmosphere environment is dictated pretty much only by the nearest vertical navigation hazard. As long as we are as long as our trajectory is elevated enough to clear us over the next nearest hump that we're likely to hit, we can effectively go horizontal immediately. Other than that first detail.
Yeah, so in an atmosphere-free environment, you could effectively orbit maybe a meter or two off the ground if you were on a perfect cue ball of a planet.
Yes, conceivably.
That would be something to see.
As we know, when setting up our circular orbits, even a picture-perfect circular orbit is going to have an altitude differential between Apo and Peri of maybe, if you're lucky, several dozen meters. So 1 meter altitude is a pretty razor-thin margin of error, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's true. That was just a thought experiment is all. But
fair enough. Fair enough. A very hair-raising thought experiment, but
it would be a little unnerving to fly that close to the ground, especially at orbital velocity.
Now, what do you think 383 means as explicitly applied to our current location, taking into account everything that we've talked about so far?
It's the amount. Well, it would be. Yeah. Let's see. Other than it's the amount of represents the amount of change in. It represents a change of velocity relative to where we're currently sitting. And
that's true. If I ever ask a question that you want a clue or you just want the answer to, feel free to prompt me, and I'll as appropriate to the lesson, I'll give you something to work with. Here, I'm going to offer you a clue in the context of the fact that I told you that approximately 580 to 600 meters per second is needed to attain a 10-kilometer orbit.
We definitely don't have enough to attain a 10-kilometer orbit, but we might have enough for a 5 or 6 kilometer orbit. Maybe. It'd be touch
5
and
or
go.
6 kilometer orbit on the moon, first of all, is a huge maybe, yes. Second of all, is inadvisable only because I think the maximum altitude peak, particularly at the equator, is something like 7,600 meters.
Yeah, so short answer is 383 is not adequate to get this thing off the planet, which means
it would be enough to give us a suborbital hop. What we're not going to attempt today, but as, again, a thought experiment, we're going to talk ourselves through. It is mathematically conceivable. Now, it's also a ton of white knuckle to accomplish what I'm going to describe.
Okay.
But it is conceivable if we had, for example, a rescue craft already in orbit, already aligned, and on a picture-perfect approach, and we timed our vertical ascent correctly, and we rendezvoused quickly enough at Apoaps, we could literally launch into the waiting claw of an already orbiting rescue craft, and the clawed rescue craft could push us into a circularization burn, and then we would be a dead weight.
Wow, you're right, that would be white knuckle. You know what? That exactly what you've described there was done in a novel I read recently.
Okay.
It's called The Martian. It's about it's a novel about the first manned mission to Mars. It's quite fantastic, and they do a maneuver very similar to what you've just described.
Yep. Now, there are some... What would contribute to the white knuckle would by no means be limited to relative speeds, limited launch window, worrying about ground clearance on the way up and what that would do to a rendezvous window. And also, more importantly, you would have to do all of the maneuvering from the rescue craft because it's what has the Delta V to operate with. Once you're up there, you're a rock. And you would need to get your claw rendezvous relative velocity to as little as possible. I wouldn't recommend much more than 4 or 5 meters per second. And even that is hellacious, because then you're talking about, instead of capturing, you're talking about colliding.
So not a recommended solution. Theoretically doable, but probably not the best solution given the circumstances.
That's correct. If we were to cheat and use the debug menu to turn off gravity, that would make it much less suicidal, but not necessarily more successful. I'm talking about the number of 383. I think the well, whatever our orbital speed was, it was 500 something.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and look, but whatever the orbital speed was, first of all, we were higher than 10 kilometers. So
that's true.
I think our, let's say, I'm pulling numbers out my nose. Whatever our altitude was, it was higher than 10 kilometers. So let's use 15 for round figures. Whatever our orbital speed was at a circular orbit of 15 kilometers, our orbital speed at 10 kilometers would be proportionally faster.
Right, because the lower you are, the shorter your orbit, and the faster you're have to travel to maintain said orbit.
That's exactly correct. So let us revert back to the Space Center.
Okay, here we go. We need to design or modify, either modify Kerbal X or design something completely from scratch, correct?
Yeah, we're going to look at all possibilities. Let's get ourselves into the VAB.
Into the VAB.
Into the VAB.
Okay. I don't...
Let's pull up Kerbal X.
Okay.
For the sake of hilarity.
Yeah, let's see... Wait, we've got... Oh, right, we've got... This is the Kerbal X we were using with the heat shield added. Okay.
Does it have heat shield added? Let's check.
Yep. There it is right there.
Alright. Pull the heat shield off. Now let us right-click on the pod.
On here. And...
Yep, and remove all monoprop.
Okay.
So, our total delta V is 7364. You see where I get that number?
Yep, right here.
Yes, this is breaking down delta. Yes, this is breaking down delta V on a per stage basis.
And then this second number is the total that would be remaining with all stages that follow.
Total remaining pre-ignition of stage 2.
Yeah, yeah. So total remaining, and then total for stage 4, total when stage 4 ignites, total when stage 5 ignites, so on and so forth.
On the pad, unlit, this mass contains 7364 meters per second according to the rocket equation. There is no listed S1 because S1 is the launch clamps.
Right.
And then S4, S2 activation, we would have 2652. The numbers get a little confusing because the stage numbers overlap because of the external boosters.
Right.
But what that means is that if I remember correctly, 26 and a half are in the external boosters, followed by 34, almost 35 in the central stack, for leaving behind 1227 in the uppermost core.
Which is the part
sound...
that will be in... Hmm? That doesn't sound right?
Scroll down. Let's see the... further down in the stack. It's been a long time since I used Kerbal X.
Okay.
Oh! This is asparagus staging. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the numbers get further folded and overlapped.
Yeah, they
what
don't
that means
really...
is that when we blow the central stack and we just have the uppermost core, we have a total available of 344.
Hold on. So that's without all of that? No, it's not. It's 2,500 in the upper stack. Or 2,600. You sure these numbers aren't calculating based on all this other stuff still being attached to it?
It shouldn't be. I do know that Kerbal Engineer and at points MechJeb, the primary competitor, and each has their pros and cons, and at some point in the series I'm going to introduce you to MechJeb as well.
Oh, hold on, I think you're reading in the wrong direction. Isn't the first stage stage 8? This stage right down here, because they numbered reverse, right? Stage 1 is the top, or stage 2 is the top piece.
Hot damn, I think you're onto something.
Stage 0, 1, 2, 3... Yeah, so stage 8 is actually the lowest.
That's why stage 7 is skipped. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Kerbal lander itself has 2,652 meters per second of delta V. And that's...
Alright, leave that disconnected.
Okay.
Now replace the monoprop, and let's watch what happens to the delta V.
Okay, here we go.
No, that's not a significant...
Let's see,
70-something hundred should be plenty to go back and forth. What? Here I am thinking that I know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's put
let's put the heat shield back. Yeah.
We just lost a whole bunch there, didn't we? 23. Weren't we at 26 before? We lost about 200 delta V.
That might be it.
Yeah, I think it's the heat shield. Just take that back off again. 26, 24, yeah.
So between that and the monoprop, that's why we can't get back.
Yep. So, all right.
It's difficult to realize intuitively until you've actually done it a few times. A round-trip landing to Minmus actually requires less delta V than a round-trip landing to the moon.
Well, actually, because Minmus has a much lower gravity, so it's cheaper to get off the planet when you're done.
Well, it's also cheaper to get on, too.
And because of the way the rocket equation works, it's actually not that much further in terms of thrust from the moon's orbit to Minmus orbit.
That is more the O-berth effect than the rocket equation, but other than that, you're correct, yes.
Yeah.
But as it happens, so between the monoprop, the mass of the heat shield, and frankly, the fact that we're beginners and probably some minor inefficiencies in the ascent profile, and it was our first attempt at so aggressive a powered landing, across those 5 possibilities of losing delta. Yeah, because total of 7,007 meters per second, it took us about 4,800 just to get into parking orbit.
Right. Which is just a little bit more than this ship is probably designed to take. Because of her heat shield. Okay. Well, now we know.
Let's pull up the vehicle list. Let's see what vehicles are already in the repertoire.
Okay. Let's see. Kerbal 2, Kerbal X, Lear Star A1, Orbiter 1A, a rover and sky crane, a space station core, a super heavy lander, a 2-stage lander.
Let's look at this 2-stage lander.
Okay. Oh, that's just the lander.
All right, let's pause recording and do some work off camera.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty.
All right, so through the magic of post-editing, we're going to be able to talk about not only what's going on in the editor scene, but the link below for the Delta V chart. I am not personally familiar with the original creator of that, but it looks like Alex Moon might be involved in its genesis. It's been in my links folder, my bookmarks, for a while, and it is absolutely invaluable. Zooming in at the bottom of the tree, we see the actual Kerbal system itself. The red arrows pointing down indicate that when coming in from high to low orbit, we can avoid some of those Delta V expenditures through use of aerobraking. That'll make more sense in a second. But in stock aerodynamics, between Kerbin and low orbit 70 kilometers, we see a distance of 4,500. That means it requires 4,500 meters per second delta V to get up. It also technically means that we need 4,500 meters per second of delta V to get down, except that to get down, we're using the atmosphere for all but maybe the first 100 meters per second of that.
Right. Aerobraking and atmosphere terminal velocities will slow us down.
Exactly. Versus, analogously, from the surface of the moon over here on the left to low lunar orbit, 10 kilometers, we see the original number that I was quoting, 580. It's good to round up a little, so I called it 600 at the time.
Yep.
That means it takes 580 to get into orbit, and it also takes 580 to get back down.
Right.
Because we have no atmosphere to give us braking for free.
Okay.
So what we're trying to design, it gets a little complicated, but maybe we'll have some numbers off to the side. We're trying to get our original Kerbal X capsule from the surface of the moon into low lunar orbit, into escape trajectory, into a lunar transfer downward trajectory, back down to Kyo, back down to LKO, back down to the surface. That means that we would need at least about 800 to 850 meters per second all told.
Yeah, actually, that does beg a very interesting question. On this chart, how do you add the numbers up to determine what delta V you're using?
It's linear. You round up generously for piloting skill, and you round down generously for well-skilled aerobraking and phase angles.
All right. So to get up, to get from the moon to lunar transfer is 500, 600, 700, 900 delta V, correct? If I'm adding that chart up right.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. So call it 900, and then.
And then from there, you can probably get away with getting down to Kerbin for... First of all, when I said 800 a few seconds ago, I was rounding wrong.
Okay.
That number... Theoretically, you would add 180 plus 680 plus 4,500. But because of these downward red arrows, we can start getting some of that for free.
Right. Because
we time it right.
Because of aerobraking. Right.
Right.
Okay.
So we need to impart, minus the 300, about 800 meters per second additional to our stricken craft.
Okay, and added bonus, we also want to be able to get the ship that we've designed here, which I'm just going to go back to our show. This thing, we also want to be able to get this home.
That's entirely correct. Now, to get this home, we will need to get this on the ground, and after it's performed its job, it still has about 1,100 meters per second delta V from the word go, stationary on the surface of the moon.
Okay.
What makes it the math difficult for our specific mission is that it's difficult to calculate what that'll be because we're transferring and Kerbal Engineer can't account for the transfer.
Right.
What we did off camera is that we added test weights to figure that in order to impart 850 or so meters per second delta V to our Kerbal X craft, that we estimated to be about 13 to 15 tons with its current fuel load.
Yep.
We reversed those numbers into our current equation, and we just added about 14 tons of mass, calculated our delta V, and then backed off. Now, what was great is that our lander core actually has a final unignited weight of about 9.5 tons. So we just divided our delta V from that stage by approximately, I think it was 5/3. We went with approximately 40% of the delta V, because we were adding a little bit more than 1.4 times its own. I'm rounding; these numbers are not adding up, but I'm just keeping track of them in my head.
Right. Okay. Well, that's going to be.
You're following me, right?
Yes, I am. I'm just. It's
because
a
we
lot
had
of...
a 9.5-ton craft, in order to figure out how to impart 800 meters per second to an additional 14.5 tons of craft, we had to add test weights of about 15 tons, recalculate our fuel load until Kerbal engineer told us that we had approximately 1,900 meters per second, 1,100 that we needed, plus 800 that we needed to transfer over.
Yeah. So anything we want to go over on this ship before we end the episode and get ready to fly this beast?
We set up the staging on the right. We thrust limited our side boosters, both liquid and, well, not our liquid boosters.
Yeah.
We're going to fire everything off the launch pad. We actually put the parachutes in stage 5 as a tracer, because we have stages 4 and 5. We needed to be able to tell them apart for testing purposes.
Yeah, because they both have identical pairs of boosters. Now we're kicking off. Yeah, we're kicking off the
solids first.
Yeah, solids first and liquids second.
And the liquids, and the external liquids are feeding with fuel lines into the center.
Yeah, that's right.
So all engines will fire, and they will fall off with the decouplers. Then at stage 4, the horizontal decoupler will fire, followed by the ring of 4. Yeah, let's add the launch clamps.
Yeah, wouldn't want to forget those. This is actually an incredibly small ship for what we're trying to do with it.
Oh yeah. And let's put those launch clamps in stage 7.
Yeah. Fire it all at once. Saving. Okay.
And when we come back, we will be on the launch pad ready to kick this pig.
Indeed. This should be interesting. Alright. See you in the next episode.
Bye for now.